What's up, Kabroda crew? Welcome back. Thanks for joining again. Hopefully y'all are doing well today. We're back in it again for another live stream here. Baxter's all ready for the live stream. Just coming over here to say hi. But yeah, glad to be back. Glad to be back here on the channel. We got Wednesday the 12th today. We're going to be checking out the market, kind of seeing what's going on, seeing what's happening, maybe kind of talking about the macro that we talked about yesterday a little bit, but mostly just breaking down what's going on today, what are we looking at, and yeah, maybe kind of checking out last night's price action a little bit as well. But yeah, thanks for joining. Hopefully, yeah, like I said, y'all are doing well, and hopefully you're having a good day so far. It is probably a little early, you know, in the morning for most people. I think it's like, well, I don't think it's like 8:30 here, so you know, maybe a little early for you, or maybe pretty late in the morning. I don't know. Depends on where you're at. Maybe not even morning at all. But thanks for joining wherever you're at, whatever time it is. We're gonna be checking out the crypto market. The crypto session we're going to be watching is, in fact, in the morning for the, well, I guess for the reason it moves, it's in the morning. So, you know, the New York session we're going to be talking about. Yeah, thanks for joining. We got a little bit of price action yesterday. You know, kind of traded sideways yesterday, kind of like we said, and then into this morning, or at the beginning of this morning, which actually has been happening quite a bit lately. You know, last morning, I guess we did our breakdown yesterday. Pretty interesting because it looked like we were going to break out, and then we ended up breaking down. But you know, TA has kind of been like that lately. You almost could trade the opposite of whatever TA says it's going to do, and you'd actually make money. So I don't know why it's been like that, but it has been. Looks like anyways, we kind of dropped down, broke below our breakdown level, continued down, and then ran sideways. We ended up breaking back into our kind of levels here coming into this morning, beginning of this morning, and then now we've kind of dropped back up, and we're kind of testing that bottom level again. Again, we'll set up the different levels, you know, today, and they won't be the same, but you know, interesting to see how the levels from yesterday kind of interact with today's price action. So, you know, kind of looking at it, that's where we're at. So really, have we done much of anything since yesterday? Not really. Kind of looking like a double top here. Excuse me, kind of looking like a pretty big double top here on the 15-minute, but could be a double top. You know, we're not super into pattern trading, but definitely looks like we came up and rejected off that resistance twice now, so we'll see what happens there. Again, like I said, we will be changing the levels, so we'll see what happens with those. Looks like we got one person joining here in the chat, so Terry, welcome in. Thanks for joining. Yeah, so we'll see what happens. It's 8:30 candle. See where we get going. But yeah, we'll just head on over to Kabroda right now. Kind of get our levels for the day. See what's going on. See what the agents are saying about today, and we'll get going from there. So this is Kabroda's website. If you haven't ever been here before, and right now we're on our main market radar screen. This is our screen that we use for pretty much all the time. It showed off on the live all the time, but we got BTC today at 64,416. That was at 8 o'clock. As of right now, it's around 63,936. We are bearish with 4 out of 5 of our indicators showing that bear signal. We are exhausted, however, so essentially we're getting kind of tired. We're ready to see a flip here on the momentum. The bear side is kind of getting tired, like I said. Jewel is lining up with that, so Jewel is also pointing to the downside with the bearish indicator, so good look for the bearish. for the bears. We do have the multi-agent system telling us that we are in a stand down position today, so no real trades looking at. And then we have two different lines here with our breakout at 64,545, and then our breakdown was 63,924. We'll see what happens with those. And you can go ahead and take a screenshot here and throw those on your chart if you'd like to, but we are going to be grabbing them right here with the copy triggers button and throwing them onto our chart with our indicator. As of trades to date, we have no 4-hour trade as of yet. Nothing really happening that long. I believe from yesterday, it's still there. Again, you know, these are in beta. Our 1 hour and 4 hour are still in beta, so we'll see what happens with those. But as of right now, you know, they are there and they're ready to go, so we'll see what happens. For the 15-minute, we got a multi-agent system telling us to stand down, so no real trade for the 15-minute again today. Not a huge surprise with how price action kind of behaved last night. A lot of sideways price action and not a lot going on, and not a lot going on today. We'll kind of break it down even further, see what's going on, see what's happening. But yeah, let's get our lines on the chart. So grab our lines here, head back to the main trading view screen, and we'll open up Wednesday's price action here, throw on our levels, and there you have it. So we got our 30-minute range here. Keep in mind this is for the 30-minute range is based off of the well, can't think of what it's called. It's not based off the futures chart. It's based off of the regular chart. Can't think of the name right now. That's annoying. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about though. It's based off the regular chart, not off the futures chart. So that's why, you know, when you're looking at this and you're saying, well, we didn't even make it up there on the 30-minute, that's why it's not based off of the future chart, and the future chart is what I have on there. Now you might ask, well, why is that? Mainly that's just because the futures market, the normal one is actually more accurate for that kind of indicator. So if you're looking at you know, levels and stuff, you're actually better off getting levels from that. Obviously you want to use futures if you're trading futures, but using the levels from that chart are a lot better. So yeah, we got our 30-minute range, we got our breakdown right here in purple, and then we got a breakout up here in green. The daily resistance is down here in the dashed red line. If you're a pro TA reader, you might notice, well, hey, you know, that's below the price action right now, so it's actually support. That is true. However, we're just going to call it resistance because that's kind of like the name for this level that we have made. It just helps it not get confusing. So daily resistance right there, daily support is down here in the dashed blue line. Between daily resistance and the top here, that's a pretty good gap, so looking pretty good for the upside actually. We got almost a 1% gap, so looking really good actually for the upside, as well as since it's down here and not above the breakout line, that would tell us that we do have a nice bit of room to run up for the upside. So if we do get that break up to the upside, we have a lot of room to just continue and run up, so we'll see what happens there. For the downside, we do have a little bit of a gap. Don't know if it's enough. We'll see. Just barely scraped by with a 0.5% gap, so pretty good for the downside as well. If it did break to the downside, you're just looking for a target of this line right there. We're not looking for it to go too much farther than that. One thing to note though is even if you did break to the downside, it's not that great, because whenever we do our stops, typically we'll throw our stops above the 30-minute range. Well, if you did that today, you're not looking at a very good trade. You only got a 0.51%, 0.5121, so not too great. You know, you risk $100 to make 50, not too great. Obviously, depends on your trading style and all of that, but that is not too great for our trading style, at least. So looking good for the upside. Excuse me. Looking good for the upside, not too great for the downside. Now we do have a beast mode candle here on the jewel. If you don't know what that is, basically these red lines or green lines, depending on what side you're looking at. But if they're red, that means typically you're going to see the bottom of the market here pretty soon, I believe. Actually, you know what? I think the red's actually, yeah, it's been a little bit since I used these, but red is actually the top of the market, which is kind of interesting. Kind of ran up here, hit the top of the market, and then we're bouncing down. So we'll see what happens here. Yeah, actually, that makes sense now I think about it, but yeah, so we'll see where it goes here. But that red line is kind of concurring with the downward side market run. So definitely looking promising for the downside here today. Again, you know, we're not looking for it to go too far. If it does break down on the downside, 63,600 level is where we would probably be calling it the target there. Obviously, you could break down a little farther. Next target would probably be around 63,550, and then 63,200 would be the next target. So basically just kind of dropping down to the bottom here, maybe retesting the level down here. Again, you know, it could break down and continue through all three of those levels and continue even farther, but that'd be the main targets that we'd be looking at. So yeah, overall looking pretty bearish here on the 15-minute, just based off of, you know, different indicators and things. The 30-minute range is not looking very great. Honestly, that would make me not want to trade this even if it did break down, mainly because of the stop you'd have to have way up here, but also just because it's so wide. It's just not too great. Typically when you have a wide 30-minute range like this, it actually kind of has a negative effect on the market, and we'll see a lot of sideways price action. So we'll see, again, you know, what actually ends up happening today, but that's kind of our thoughts on there. Looks like another person just joined. Welcome in, Kathleen. Thanks for coming in. Yeah, let's move out a little bit, kind of zoom out, see what's going on. Kind of double topped here on the 1 hour as well. You can see the wick kind of came up within this wick, so a little bit of a double top, honestly not too great. Typically you'll want to close, you know, within this wick to actually have a nice little double top. As of right now, you know, it's looking more like a little bit of a downtrend, somewhat of a triangle kind of forming, you know, which is actually an opposite pattern. So typically if you see a pattern form like this, you're actually going to break to the upside. And what kind of pattern I mean is something like this. I would say. That's not really a breakout, or that's a breakout of the downside and then come back up into it. So kind of just a pattern forming to the downside. Typically when you see that, it'll break up to the upside. So, you know, we could have a lot more room down, but we'll see what happens there. Really not looking too great on either side. The jewel is trying to fire off here, kind of in the middle right now. We kind of hit bottom here, and then typically actually what happens when you hit the bottom on the jewel is you'll actually see price action come down even lower, which it did. And then we started to fire up and didn't make it very far, and now we're kind of seeing a little bit of pullback. So we'll see what happens with this. Could continue up a little farther there, or continue up, you know, after that. Or we can kind of come down, reset, maybe set another green beast mode candle and fire off there on the 1 hour. We'll see. On the 4 hour really not anything standing out. The jewel is looking pretty good for the upside as well. We're seeing a little bit of a fire off. You do have a little bit of a pattern kind of forming there with the low and then a drop lower. But again, who knows if that's the bottom as of right now. It's not looking awesome. It's not really looking like anything special as of right now. Daily, looking about the same. We're seeing a little bit of a pattern, maybe more for the bullish side here. Jewel is kind of middle line, nothing super interesting there. Yeah, honestly, not super interesting. You could even say it's a full-on pattern, kind of with a flat top here, and you're seeing a rising bottom. So we'll see. You know, that actually is looking more bullish as well. But you also could see that break bearish. You know, 60% of the time it is bullish, and 40% of the time we could break down. So we'll see what happens. Again, you know, really nothing kind of standing out telling you like, hey, we're gonna go to the upside, hey, we're gonna go to the downside. And you know, that's like, sorry, I gotta get a drink of coffee. That's why we kind of been, you know, talking about those two major levels, the 60,000 level, 60,003, no, 60,055 and the 80,635, I believe is what it is. So 60,055 is the bottom level we've been kind of watching for. We're waiting for that to get broken on the weekly and get close below. Then we'll see the drop down to that around that $62,000 to $65,000 range. That's really what we've been watching for, honestly. The opposite of that would be the upside. So if we came up and broke above that 80,635 level, then we'd be looking for some possible upside momentum. Be looking for some trades to the upside. But yeah, as of lately, we've been looking for that downside, really waiting for it to kind of break down. But until it really goes either of those ways, we're just going to see a lot of compression as of right now on the charts. And that's why you're seeing, you know, some kind of weird, funky patterns forming here on the 1 hour, 4 hour, and daily that we kind of just looked at. You know, there's sort of patterns, but none of them are super great. And honestly, a lot of the indicators are not lining up super well with those patterns even. So again, you know, we'll see what happens. Really, we would like to see it kind of break down, break up. Either way, just get above one of those, above or below one of those thresholds that we kind of set at 6,055 or the 80,635. And then, you know, after that, that'll kind of tell us, hey, you know what, we are actually going to probably break to the upside and continue, or opposite, you know, we were going to break down to the downside and continue down. Kind of set us up for some better trades, some better daily kind of breakdowns, and daily analysis would be a lot easier and a lot better once that kind of happens. But until then, we're kind of in a sort of limbo zone, kind of teetering between each side. That's why a lot of TA is kind of random, kind of weird. It's hard to tell. And you're seeing a lot of traders actually have a pretty tough time right now. Yeah, so all that to say, that's kind of where we're at, bigger term. Obviously, you know, it's affecting these smaller time frames, but it doesn't mean we can't continue to break it down and kind of check it out and continue to improve on our TA as we kind of wait. Speaking of TA, we can go ahead now and check out the breakdown, the newsletter sort of thing that we have, talking about bringing it out to the public. Kind of see what the agents are saying as in terms of the breakdown for the 15-minute chart today, and just seeing what happens. So we'll head on back to Kabroda here, and this is the letter that we're talking about, the breakdown here. Kind of got all the notes from the multi-agent system and kind of got the breakdown of what's going on. So BTC is standing down today. Execution timeframes are exhausted. inside the session box. BTC USDT is printing at 64,113 inside a compressed session box bounded by 63,924 and 64,545. No trigger has been accepted on either side. The bearish structural lean is intact, but the execution time frame has run out of gas before a trade can be issued. No position is warranted until the momentum stack resets. Yeah, so that's kind of the overall look at today. We'll kind of break it down a little bit more here. Jumping into the structural picture, BTC is in bear wave 4. The corrective bounce off the 60,055 wave 3 low. The structural map places the terminal ceiling with the corrective arc at 60,000 or 80,632. At this point, wave 5 targets the 42,000 and 45,000 zone. Price at 64,113 represents roughly 60% of that structural distance traveled early in the arc, but complicated by 6 consecutive sessions of stacked divergence warnings that have produced an unresolved standoff between the bearish primary structure and the accumulated bullish momentum divergence at macro level. Compression break in either direction sets the tone for the next tradable leg. Again, that's kind of what we just talked about with the longer time frames. We're waiting for it to either come up and break that 80,632 level, or we're waiting for it to come down and break the 60,055 level. The sentiment for today. So the fear and greed index is registering at 27 out of 100, firmly in fear territory, reflecting the elevated broad market risk aversion. Historically, readings at this level of periods of capital defensiveness rather than directional conviction. Against the bearish primary structure, the fear reading is contextually consistent, but the current multi-session bullish divergence warns against treating sentiment alignment as confirmation of a clear short entry. So you don't really have either side. People are kind of sitting on their hands, is essentially what the fear index is telling us as of right now. Today's energy. So the 4-hour and the hourly time frames both confirm the bearish primary trend, but hourly momentum is turned positive against the 4-hour negative reading, a constructive retracement within the bearish structure, not a reversal. The 4-hour fuel grade remains strong, meaning the bearish tide remains propulsive capacity at the dominant time frame. However, the 50-minute execution timeframe has extended far without consolidating. Momentum is exhausted at current extension, reversionary risk is elevated, and a cross-timeframe exhaustion signal is active. Short-term engine is spent and not positioned to carry a major move. So essentially, 4 hours looking nice. We have some momentum on there. However, looking down in the lower time frames, we're seeing a loss of momentum. You're seeing the exhaustion start to form, and we're just not looking great for the move that we'd be wanting to take the trade down to if we were to trade. Sorry, gotta get a coffee drink. All right, why is the system standing down today? So we have 2 independent veto conditions firing simultaneously, each sufficient on its own. The 50-minute execution timeframe is carrying exhaustion momentum with an active cross timeframe exhaustion signal. Entering a short here means chasing the bottom of a stretched leg, not positioning ahead of one. The structural entry at 63,924 sits inside the session box, but momentum at the exhaustion level execution level is not primed to sustain a move to the first target at 63,302 or the second target at 62,918. The second condition compounds the first 5 consecutive sessions of RSI divergence lags layered against the weekly bullish divergence reading in the opposite direction, or reading in opposition to a bearish daily. Push structural means reversion risk. Wow. Well above the 4-hour fuel grade alone would permit. With the recent performance memory carrying the 3 losses against 2 wins and a negative net resume, the system requires higher structural confluence than is present today. The divergence stack and execution timeframe exhaustion together constitute a fuel state insufficient to support a sustained directional move. So basically all that to say, we just don't have the energy behind us. We're sitting there ready to go. You know, we could break down, could break up. We could see a break of either side, but there's no energy in the market really telling us that we are gonna actually be able to carry this all the way to the end zone. So right now we are we're sitting at the start line ready to go. We just don't have any fuel in the tank. Essentially what we're sitting at. So that's why we're kind of staying out of it today, as well as, yeah, I mean, I guess that's really it. That's what we're looking for. Both of those points are kind of pointing to that. So it would change if we had the short setup reopen under two condition. If we had the short setup reopen, we'd need two specific conditions. Both must resolve. One without the other is not sufficient. First, the 15-minute momentum must reset, rebuilding from the rested state, and return to a primed reading with the exhaustion signal cleared. Secondly, the multi-session divergence stack must show at minimum one session without a divergence flag before the bearish thesis carries full structural confidence. On the long side, at the 50-minute resets, the upper structural boundary at 64,545 accepts on a candle close. The exhaustion signal clears along at 65,166, with a stop at 63,931, becomes structurally defensible, but not before all three conditions are met simultaneously. Oh yeah, so yeah, essentially not going to happen today. Not looking too great for either way, really. So yeah, overall, not looking too great today. Not really a whole lot really changing or doing anything that matters to us, I guess. You know, we're kind of just going to be sitting on our hands again today. Sorry to say. Again, yeah, not too interesting. I don't know. Hopefully y'all got some information though out of that. Hopefully it helped you kind of see the market maybe in a different light, or maybe just see the market a little better, or, you know, maybe just kind of see something that you could maybe use in your own TA. But yeah, thanks for joining. If you guys liked our content, go ahead and hit that like button. Yeah, hit the subscribe. Just thanks for joining. Yeah, we're glad to have y'all here. Glad to have y'all on the channel. We will see y'all tomorrow. But yeah, thanks for joining. We will catch y'all there. Happy trading, y'all.